Hey there, nerds. We're back with another episode of Two Nerdy Dads. We're up to number 11. Terribly exciting. And with me, as always, is Jason Applegate. How's it going, Jason?
Good. Hello.
Excellent. Well, let's just jump right into it. What do we have first, Mr. Applegate?
Well, I think first we should talk about Doctor Who. We just have the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi, just aired in America. So I was able to watch that episode on Saturday night on BBC America. So I know you're not a huge Doctor Who fan, but I thought I'd give a couple of insights, and I posted it to Facebook to get some responses from some of our listeners out there. So I thought we'd share a little bit. Did you get a chance to catch the episode, or?
You are not joking. I am not a huge fan of Doctor Who. I've gone back and started watching with the reboot or the relaunch, or whatever you want to call it, with Chris Eccleston.
Yeah.
I got 3 episodes in, and this was a while ago, but I'm going to have to try again. I didn't think it was all that great. I got to the episode with the last human with the stretched skin and all that stuff, and that was interesting, but
it's its own thing, I think, and I was the same thing when I tried to jump. I tried it out. I was like, I just don't know. And I think for me, it was just I wasn't a fan of Eccleston as the Doctor, so I went and jumped ahead and jumped in. And when I went back to it, I started with Matt Smith's first episode, and really liked it. I just liked the whimsical Doctor that he played, and then I went back and saw some David Tennant. I kind of think of him as like sort of intense pretty boy Doctor, but I liked him pretty well too. But so I don't know if I were to say, if any of you out there are just sort of like, I just don't dig Doctor Who, I would suggest trying to jump in with Matt Smith. I think it's a good place to jump in. It's not too out there too quickly. I think it's, I don't know, I like the writing, I like the way he portrays the Doctor, but yeah, I guess, or the other way you do it is you just jump in right now with the new Doctor if you want to give it a shot.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I talked to a couple friends at work, and they really found it intriguing. They really liked how Matt Smith ended, how Matt Smith started as the Doctor, and so they weren't sure how Peter Capaldi was going to jump in, because obviously he's an older Doctor than what they've had recently.
Right.
But they said it was really interesting how they kind of got into it, and why they explained he's a little more stern, and why this Doctor is the way he is so far.
Yeah, I thought they did a pretty clever job of playing, into the idea that he's a much older Doctor, and that his face, and he doesn't seem to be too happy that he looks so old. I just found it highly amusing that Peter Capaldi is making fun of himself, within the character, because he's talking at one point about his eyebrows and how intense his eyebrows are, and I think he said you could open a bottle with these eyebrows.
That's
it's
funny.
just, it's amusing, and it was funny to hear him talk about himself in that way and be sort of that self-deprecating humor. And I guess one of our listeners had said that she was glad that he was sort of kooky, and because from the previews, the commercials, they were really emphasizing how this is going to be kind of dark and gritty. And so she thought, well, I hope the Doctor doesn't lose that humor that he has. And he doesn't. And so I'd have to say as a whole, and I'm not the biggest Doctor Who fan or the biggest, expert on it by any stretch of the imagination. But I liked it. I liked it. I think it's different enough from what Matt was doing and David and Eccleston even. And but I think it stays true to it. And what I thought, someone else had mentioned this, and when they did, I totally agreed with it. Clara, the companion, the latest companion, had sort of kind of, I don't know, she just seemed to just be eye candy a little bit, like she was a pretty girl, and then somebody had written that she was kind of just a plot device in the last season with Matt Smith. And I hadn't really thought about it that way. And seeing this first episode, that same person was complimenting that Clara was finally having some character to work with and was able to shine a little bit. Her character was a little more enjoyable. So thinking back on it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. I think she was a little more enjoyable. They gave her a little they're drawing upon her relationship with the doctor, and basically it ends with him needing her to help him with this new adjustment. And that's kind of clever. I think that's good, and she's not just arm candy.
That's cool.
Yeah. So overall, I really liked it. I think a couple of announcements that have come via the interweb. The first, and they're both for television, one's for a movie and the other's for television. The movie announcement is Scoot McNairy is being rumored to be the Flash, and the reason in the new Batman versus Superman movie, the reason that they are assuming that he's the Flash is that he was wearing green screen leggings. So they're assuming that's to create the running quickly type of a thing. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know. You have any thoughts? I saw Scoot McNairy, and I'm like, who? I had to IMDb him and see what he was in. And even after that, I was sort of like, okay, I saw those movies, but he's just not jumping out at me. But what you know him or?
I'm with you. I didn't really know him. I looked him up, and he is listed on IMDb as Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, so I don't know if that makes him more official or not. He was in Argo. That one jumped off the page, and I was like, man, I don't remember him in Argo. He does look familiar, so I was like, okay, that's interesting. He was in. He played the voice of a character in Axe Cop, a very cool comic book story. If you don't know the history of that one's fun. And he also did some DC work as a voice. I didn't catch who it was, but in one of the animations, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff going back a long time, and I just don't know who he is. So I don't know. I mean, it was the two that jumped out to me were 12 Years a Slave, which I really loved that movie. But again, he didn't. I just couldn't figure out who he was in that. And then Argo. But you know, same thing for other people too. You know, I mean, no one who knew who Tom Hiddleston was before he was Loki, and then you can go back and find stuff that he was in. In fact, I was just watching another BBC show with the detective. It was a detective story. I think it was called Waller. It had Kenneth Branagh in it. He was the main character. And so I'm watching this with Kenneth Branagh, and then there's Tom Hiddleston, and I'm like, oh, that's funny.
Well, I bet this is how he got to be Loki, is he knew Kenneth Branagh from this TV series, and then looped on over. So that was kind of fun to see. So yeah, I mean, I'm reserving judgment. I'm not saying anything like, oh, how dare they cast somebody that's a nobody. I just thought it was sort of like, oh, okay, don't know what to do with this. But I guess the other rumor is that he might be Metallo, but that would be another thing. But I don't know, just the leggings just say Flash to me.
Well, it's funny, when I first heard this report, I was like, Red Tornado? Why are they doing that? Because I hadn't seen pictures, I didn't know anything. I just, bottom half as green screen. I'm like, why would they cast that? That's weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a silly character, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be quite an obscure character to draw upon, especially when people are clamoring, if anybody, for the Martian Manhunter, you know. So, it's got to be Flash. That's my thinking.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was that was one bit of news. The other one was for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that was Adrienne Palicki, I think is how you say her name, and she's supposed to be Mockingbird, which is sort of the Marvel version, in my opinion, of Black Canary, but without the voice powers, you know. But she's more like of a female Daredevil. She has those little weird batons that Daredevil has, but is definitely Green Arrow's Black Canary ripoff, basically. So thoughts about that? Did you recognize her? Because I had to look her up too, and I know she's been in other television shows and such.
Just by luck, as we talked about last week with my recommendation, Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, I saw that one on there.
Huge fan of. And then I believe she was Wonder Woman on the failed Wonder Woman.
Right.
So
that's right. I'm glad you said that because I had forgotten that I saw that on So here she goes from DC over to Marvel, and certainly not as widely recognizable character, but let's hope that it fares better than the Wonder Woman TV series.
I think so, and I think she's a good enough actress. Again, I've only really seen her on Friday Night Lights.
Yeah,
and when you look her up, she's been in a lot of stuff, which surprised me because watching Friday Night Lights, I'm like, she looks familiar, but I can't place her. And then kind of looking her up, I'm like, oh, she's been in a lot of stuff. I think this could be one of those moments where Marvel has her in mind for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but the character and I think the actress could potentially cross over into a movie if it worked out. I could see that happen.
Right. Well, and there's been talk about there being, them expanding the Avengers cast quite significantly. So I wouldn't be surprised if nothing else she makes a cameo. But it'll be interesting to see what they do because they certainly haven't had a whole ton of, cameo superheroes that are widely recognizable. The biggest one's got to probably be, Deathlock. And even the way that they did that was not very recognizable from, to the comic book. And so it'll be interesting to see, is she going to, what's she going to look like? How are they going to costume her? Are they going to kind of dress her down to where she doesn't really look much like Mockingbird except for maybe her signature weapons or something like that? But anyway, it's always good to see them keep tying into the comic books, I think.
Oh, I completely agree.
Cool. And then the next big business news, no pun intended, I suppose, is Action Comics selling for $3.2 million. It was the most pristine, conditioned issue that they've ever seen, and it was put up onto eBay and went for $3.2 million. I guess what was it, 2011? An Action Comics had sold for, I think it said 2.6. So quite a big jump. And is Steel helping that out, or just the fact that it's a better book? I'm not sure. Thoughts?
As silly as it sounds, I think one has to do with the economy. I think the economy's making a comeback.
That's true.
Collectors and comics are getting big again. This is sort of tangent, but last year's Comic-Con, 2013, DC, on the heels of Man of Steel, presented, and I don't know exactly the story. I don't know where this comic came from, but it was up there in its grade. I think it was a 9 or 9.1. And they presented Jeff Johns, Jim Lee, and I don't remember who the other, maybe I can't remember who else was up there, with Action Comics #1, Superman. And, I'm maybe 10 feet away from this. And I'm like, oh, my God, I am this close. At the time, only knowing it was just over $2 million from the last day.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I'm this close to a $2 million comic. Wow, unbelievable. And not only that, first superhero comic, 1938, created by a gentleman from Cleveland. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is amazing.
Holy Grail moment. Kind of thing.
Yeah, it really was. And it's like, oh, my, I can't imagine. And now you hear it's up to, 3 point whatever it was million. You're like, oh, my God.
Yeah. My first reaction was, who has $3.2 million to spend on a comic book? I mean, I think you have something with the idea of like the economy, but I'm pretty sure whoever spent the $3.2 million on the Action Comics #1 probably wasn't affected too adversely by the recession.
No, they weren't taking out a loan.
No. So, and then what it reminded me of was I was just watching a documentary that PBS had done on comic books, and it was in 3 series, and the first one was about the beginning of superheroes. The second one was mostly the Silver Age, so it was a lot of Marvel. And then, of course, the third one was modern. And watching the first episode and seeing these little kids that are buying them, at a dime store, and they're just, rolling them up and stuffing them in their back pocket. And
I know.
And you just in your gut, you're just like, no. But that's why they're so rare, is because it's a dime store thing, and you read them and you loved them, and that was it, and you're lucky that it didn't get thrown away, and so there are only so many copies.
they were made for kids at the time. I mean,
oh,
you
sure.
weren't about adults. You certainly weren't thinking about collecting. I mean, I have nowhere near on par, but I have a original release Millennium Falcon toy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And it is beat to hell because as a kid, I played with it. The stickers are all broken. It's not even close. So when you hear of a 9.1 graded Action Comics, you're like, what? Somebody actually knew to do that and not actually, you pretty much didn't read it or anything? That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I'd be interested to hear the story of, where they discovered this. It had to have been like, pressed between things, some random place that was just sort of forgotten about.
At all.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. But if you get a chance, check that PBS documentary out, because I just thought it was really intriguing on how it talked about comics and American history and, of course, American culture. It was really, really intriguing. Cool. But yeah. Last bit of two more bits of news. Let's cover two of these things. One, of course, is the Emperor Palpatine thing that you sent me, where someone was describing how Emperor Palpatine could be in Episode 7. So you want to take that away and kind of explain what that was all about?
Sure. There's speculation that the main bad guy villain in the new Star Wars movies, and I think it was even speculated the next two movies, is Emperor Palpatine. And, Darth Sidious at this point, we kind of know. And there's speculation on how it could happen. And there's a lot of theories. I believe Kino Review was the one that kind of broke this news. And they mentioned that don't go asking Ian McDiarmid, who played Palpatine in the movies, because he's not coming back. And it's like, okay, this is really interesting. The first thing that popped in my head was, I believe it was Dark Horse Comics, in their books, Dark Empire, which pretty much the first follow-up to anything Star Wars after Return of the Jedi. There's a clone of Emperor Palpatine. I can't remember exactly where the clone came from, but basically it was let on that the Emperor would constantly clone himself when he felt like his current form was going to be dying. So they would make sure that there was a clone ready to go. And after Return of the Jedi, a clone came about and actually brought Luke to the dark side. Made him for the dark side and gave him those powers. And that was the first thing that popped in my head. But then, of course, popped in my head that, they sort of wiped away the canon that was not the movies, so no, that can't be it. And they talked about, referenced in the I think it was the third movie, Revenge of the Sith, where Palpatine is talking to Anakin, and he's revealing that he knew of a Jedi, like Darth Plagueis or something along those lines, who had defeated death. And he had told the secret to him on how to defeat death. And then, of course, Darth Sidious had killed Plagueis or whatever his name was. So he was really the only one who knew, and he was teasing that he could tell Anakin how to do it because he was worried about Padme Amidala at the time. So there's a potential that the Emperor being thrown down the power shaft or whatever that was, he knows how to defeat death, and then in his last moment he used that knowledge to defeat death, and now he's making a comeback. I honestly don't know if I like that or not. I think that's goofy. I certainly hope the story's a little tighter than that, but I don't know if I like having the Emperor in there or not. I'm still kind of stuck in this idea that the best trilogy that has occurred after Return of the Jedi is Grand Admiral Thrawn, and the whole storyline that occurred with him. So in the Timothy Zahn trilogy, and I don't know. I'm clearly going to have to come to terms with it. What do you think?
Well, my first thought is that can you have a lamer Darth Plagueis? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Did we get a little bit lazy with that name? I mean, Darth Sidious kind of cool, but Darth Maul, that's a cool sounding name. And it's like, Darth, what can we come up with? Well, plagues are bad. Yeah, Darth Plagueis. Let's go with that one. I was just fail.
Or Darth Evil Guy. Let's do that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know if which is cheesier? Is a clone, a cheesier thing? I mean, they did the clones with the stormtroopers or clone troopers, so it's like that seems built right into the plot. Why wouldn't the Emperor, also make clones of himself? That seems to sort of fit. Is one instinct that I have.
Attacking the Attack of the Clones, that always disappointed me, because reading the books that came out, which George Lucas okayed all of these books, and he referenced the Clone Wars, and it sounded like this awesome thing, and they referenced Jedis being cloned, and obviously Darth Lords, Sith Lords being cloned. When we get to the actual Clone Wars, it's just troopers? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's it? Lame. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I always sort of wondered if like they lost the original copy, and that's why the stormtroopers are so bad at shooting people, because they're like a copy of a copy, like when you do the Xerox machine and you're on your like fifth draft or whatever, and it's just not quite as clear. But anyway, I think that one's it's sort of built in, but I kind of like the idea of like this sort of reincarnation idea, like he's so evil he could reincarnate himself and maybe become a young Sith, somewhere. I always think of that scene in Empire. Remember the part of the swamp that was just like dark, that whatever you do, don't go in there. Like, what if he just sort of crawls out of the muck, and comes out from some sort of dark part of a planet, and they just don't explain it. Some of what Lucas has done that has been bad is explain things. Don't explain it. Just let it be, and just put it out there and see what happens, and let people's imagination determine what they think or why this happened or what have you. That's my thought on it.
That'd be interesting. That'd be really interesting, because that kind of goes back to what we talked about last week with the other villain that they kind of referenced with the sort of android Terminator kind of guy.
Yeah.
With the Darth Vader mask, holding the Darth Vader with a hole in it. It's like, okay, so they're definitely referencing things that have happened in the past. That's cool. Where that hopefully is a good way. And J.J. Abrams, he knocked it out of the park with Star Trek, which in overall with the franchise, but his reboot was amazing. So he's full faith. He's got it. Yeah. Hopefully he can handle it, and I think he can. Yeah.
All right, next bit of news is a little bit of controversy that's cropping up, and it's with an alternate version of the Spider-Man #1. It's the variant cover, and it's done by the artist Milo Manara, and it's getting a lot of criticism because of its basically over erotic portrayal of Spider-Woman, particularly in the way in which she's posed atop the roof. And also the absolute skin-tight nature of the. Let's be frank. If you end up seeing the image, it's not even a costume. It's basically body paint. Yeah. And so a lot of backlash, of course, from a lot of female readers, who are thinking that, wow, here's another great opportunity for a female character, and this is what they do for a variant cover. So, what are your thoughts? You saw the cover. What do you think?
I did. First off, I think the controversy is funny, personally, because I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know I've seen Spider-Man or Venom or Carnage or any one of these characters in a similar pose climbing a wall. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, I think this art is just bad. I don't necessarily see a controversy as, she's being, in an erotic position because she's Spider-Woman. I just think it's bad art. I was not thrilled with the cover in that it just looked dumb. So I understand it to an extent, but I just thought it was bad art.
Yeah, I've heard that criticism some too, that the art really wasn't very good. I think the only thing that I thought of is it's not. I mean, yeah, she's climbing up, or down a wall, but I think it's just the position of the lower half of her body and the angle that it's at. It just seems fairly pornographic, and I think a lot of people are having that kind of an issue, and I can kind of see it. I mean, it certainly is one that I would walk my son right past, if it was on there.
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of comics that are like that, and I'm going to end up doing a whole article on this of the representation of women's bodies in comics, and that line between sexual empowerment and sexual objectification, and it's such a fine line, and oftentimes gets crossed, and it's usually sexual objectification, and that's what this one seems to be. But I mean, the other thing about it is, hey, it's the variant cover. Then just don't spend the extra however much they charge for those ridiculous things to get it. But ironically, I wonder if all the bad press has sort of made it, even more of a thing, and more people are going to get it because, this is the cover that everybody's talking about. And the other thing was, this guy, I guess, is known for his erotic covers. I mean, that's what he does, is erotic paintings and such. And he's done other covers before for Marvel. I think I've seen some of the other covers. I don't think they're quite as suggestive as this one, but they're still pretty obviously objectifying. So I don't know. One comic artist posted, and I can't remember who it was, so I apologize, but had posted of like, well, what did you guys expect? Like, this is what this guy is known for. You wouldn't be upset about Todd McFarlane drawing Spider-Man with really big eyes. It's sort of like that's his thing. Or say, wow, Todd McFarlane, you use way too much detail in your drawings. Well, that's what he does. That's him. So I'm kind of walking the fence. I see why people are upset by it, and I certainly wouldn't be proud to hang that on my wall. But I think there's maybe a little bit of overreaction. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I things like this, I get cynical. I mean, I'm not saying I'm an old man, but I get cynical at things like this. It's like, did Marvel create a controversy to bring more awareness to Spider-Woman, and that's why they did this?
It wouldn't surprise me, no.
More sales.
Yeah, it could be. I think that's not beyond something that they would do. I don't know. I think, if nothing else, I don't think that they're going to cancel the book. I don't think they're going to cancel that printing of it. And it doesn't come out until October. And I'm excited about Spider-Woman #1. I actually just got Spider-Woman #1 from way back when in 70 whatever, got the first issue. And decided to, go back and read that. And I'm sure I'll feature her in one of my Feminist Fanboy articles. So I'm excited for it to come out. Yeah.
Speaking of which, stay tuned to Nerdlocker.com for Jason's latest feminist article featuring the woman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Super excited about that. Thank you for the promotion there, a little self-promotion. Wonder Woman is like the first female superhero, really. And so it took me a long time to write this one, so I hope people appreciate it and like it, because I wanted to make sure that I did, the mother of all superheroes justice. To do another pun. I'm full of puns today. Sorry. I apologize about that.
But definitely check out that article. And if you're not reading Wonder Woman right now by Brian Azzarello, he's coming to an end on his run. And I don't know the artist. I'm not a guy who notices art unless it's bad. I do enjoy this art, but I don't really pay attention to the artist. It's a really interesting book, great writing, and the art is unique. I'll say that. It doesn't really mimic other books. It doesn't. I mean, you can't. You're really unique. I really enjoyed that one. I can't remember who the artist is though, so I apologize for that. But you have to.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names too, so I forget it. Yeah. But I think it fits the sort of mythology that they're doing. I feel like his style just really kind of fits that. And I loved his new takes on the gods and goddesses. One of my favorites was Neptune or Poseidon as this huge like mammoth fish monster. It just was just classic. I was like, wow, that's just brilliant.
I might be way off. And then Cliff Chang is coming to mind. That might be it, but I might be off. I can't remember.
It could be. Yeah. And then, of course, the news just came out today, as far as I know. I guess it was in a CNN interview on Sunday that Breaking Bad Season 6 is coming. So if you thought that that Walter White was dead, like I did at the end, which they don't really, leave it that. They pan away as he's dying. But I just thought of him as, okay, this is the perfect ending. He's dying. Well, apparently he does not die, and there will be a season 6. This is not rumor. It's straight from Vince Gilligan's mouth in a CNN interview. So I have some pretty strong thoughts on this. What are your thoughts, first of all?
I really, truly feel, you told me this earlier today, and I still believe this, I think it's an Onion article. I think it's a 4th of July article. I'm sorry, April Fool's article. I can't believe it. Why would you do this? But that's my thoughts. Why?
Yeah, I you know what? It brings to mind, I think I've said this before. He's George Lucasing it. I feel like he's just like, no, this is my thing. This is where my money is. This is where I'm comfortable. People love this. This is my success. And I'm not going to go out and make a Howard the Duck after this. So I'm going to stick with what works. And I really think it's too bad because I thought that the spinoff, the Better Call Saul spinoff, what a great opportunity. That's built for success. This, I just don't know. I was just saying the other day that Breaking Bad is the perfect dramatic series because it is an American tragedy. It's on par with Death of a Salesman. It's on par with the classics like Oedipus Rex, and I'm talking literature here. And that's how I view that television series. You have this man who's put in these awful circumstances, and he has to make tough choices, and he falls. And he falls because of pride, which is the typical tragic hero flaw. And it comes down and everything falls to pieces. And then in the end, he has this epiphany and this revelation of who he really is and what he's become. And then he dies. And he dies in such a way that is redeemable. And you feel good about the character again, which you hadn't really for a couple of seasons. You almost sort of relished in his badness. You were like, wow, this guy's a really, bad man pajama. And I just thought the way that it ended was just perfect. I was completely satisfied. I know a lot of people were like, no, it's over. Not me. I was like, this is the perfect way you end a series. This is how you don't jump the shark. And now I'm just afraid. I really am, especially when in his quote he specifically says, I'm not, trying a cash grab. This isn't a cash grab, he said. And I'm just like, oh, you had to say it. I think that is our first bad sign about this. That, and nothing about this, nowhere did he say, and I was looking for it, that I had always planned on a season 6. I always knew when I wrote that last episode of season 5 that really wasn't the end. And I didn't see that, and so I'm thinking this is just some guy that's really holding on to something he should just let go and leave it be. But, hey, that's my rant on it.
No, you summed it up perfect as far as the American tragedy. When he comes home from Connecticut, when he made that long trip, and he visits his ex-wife or whatever they were at the time, he's like, I always told you I did it for the family. I was lying. I loved it. This is who I am. And you're like, oh, my God, fantastic. It was just a great twist. Yeah, absolutely. And you see, if you go back and you watch season 1, when you really feel like he's just, stuck and doing it, there are these little hints about his sort of regret that he didn't become, a huge millionaire. And so it was, but that's how it happens, man. Nobody just jumps into something awful, usually. You slip a little bit, and then it's a slippery slope, and next thing you know, it's an avalanche. So anyway, I'm kind of hoping it's not true, but let's move on to our usuals, our go-to every week. We do these. Do it. Recommendations. You want to start with family, or you want to start with the Nerd Cave? You pick. Okay, let's start with family. And I'll go. My family relates to our first topic, which was Doctor Who. And I found that you can watch really, really old Doctor Who episodes. You have to look it up on Netflix. It's on streaming.
But you have to look up classic Doctor Who, and that's the key. And I don't know if it's just recently been put up there because of the new season. I'm guessing that's probably it, or what. But you can't watch seasons in their entirety. It's just bits and pieces. But my family got to sit down and watch, one with the first Doctor, and then we watched another one that had the second Doctor in it. We've only watched two because they're long. Like, they were like 3 or 4 episode series. I mean, stories. Sorry, not series, but stories that went over 3 or 4 episodes. So it's really like watching a movie, so you got to set aside the time. But it just was fun. More safe for kids to watch than the newer ones are, not as scary. And it's kind of fun to just see the origins, and yes, the graphics are cheesy, and if you're a person who, you can't appreciate something for when it was created, like you're like, I hate watching black and white, then don't just turn this off, because one, I'm annoyed with you, but two, like, you just won't appreciate it. But let me tell you, I have a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter that they were not bothered by it at all, and they really liked watching them, and so it was sort of a proud dad moment for me as well. So that is what I would suggest. Go out there, take a look at the classic Doctor Who. You can find it on Netflix.
Very cool. And I don't know if you know this. I think this is true because it sounded realistic, but one of my friends who's really into Doctor Who told me why there's only select episodes of the classics online.
Oh.
And that's because the BBC, like most stations back in the day, would have their tapes, and there was super, super budgeted, so they just record over the old episodes. There's no reason to keep this stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
Nobody would care. So as they went back to try and find old episodes, they don't have them. Nobody has them.
Wow.
And they've actually reached out to people to be like, does anybody have some of this stuff? And they've been able to cull some of it together, but for the most part, that's lost. It's gone.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. That's really, really interesting. I know that happened, and you know this probably too from your film studies, with a lot of old films because they had silver in the actual film, which is where silver screen comes from. And so during the war, or the Depression, I think it was, they actually melted the film stock down for the silver that was in it. And so we've lost a lot of movies that way too. That's really, really very interesting. How about you, sir? What's your family recommendation?
My family recommendation is a favorite classic that has been renewed on both page and TV. Our friend Kyle Paladino would be thrilled. Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo is on Netflix. They've really updated the music and the storylines. It's very self-deprecating at times. I very much enjoy the new cartoon Scooby-Doo. But then they've also, at DC, done a great job of translating Scooby-Doo mysteries onto the written page. And his comic, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, the whole mystery team is there. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. The kids, we read it to go to bed a lot of times. It's a lot of fun. And then Saturday mornings, a lot of times, we'll get up and watch Scooby-Doo. So I highly recommend, if you have not checked out the new and improved, in my opinion, Scooby-Doo, is a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. I had caught a couple of the, when they did the new cartoons, and I appreciate, too, the self-deprecating humor that they had in there. So, and yeah, our friend Kyle is a huge fan of Scooby-Doo, so
I don't know if
shout
he's
out
the new stuff. I know he's a huge fan of the old stuff.
Well, you have to appreciate the classics anyway. I mean, they're just great. The running panels, when you run past the same like door, bookshelf, candlestick, over and over. It's just great. Just great. But as kids, we didn't notice any of that. Are you kidding?
No.
My favorite of the old ones too were the guest stars when they would have Batman and Robin, and the Globetrotters, and they'd have all kinds of crazy stuff.
Heck yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right, how about on to our Nerd Cave?
Sure. This is one, I recently got back into the cable game and have cable. Was just doing the Netflix thing for a long time, but we got a nice internet deal and it included cable, so nice little backstory there to bore everybody. But we have HBO Go now, and I'm like, okay, cool, I can catch up on stuff. And I found the show Life's Too Short. Now, if this is not new, I hope everybody's heard about it. If you haven't, check it out. It's Warwick Davis, who was Wicket in Return of the Jedi, and more importantly, he was Willow, which is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Ron
Yes.
Howard with George Lucas producing. One of the first digital effects in the film, not digital effects, but ILM effects beyond Star Wars, which was really cool. But it has Ricky Gervais and Steve Merchant, who was the team behind the BBC's The Office. They also did extras. They do a lot of comedy stuff. They're hilarious. But they focused on Warwick Davis in this unreal reality show where he plays himself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by that, I mean he's not playing the true self. This is not really him. He's doing a very comedic, outrageous, like he goes to a Comic-Con in England where he's signing autographs and he's charging £25 per autograph. You know, that's not abnormal or anything. But a child, and first thing she says, oh, he has a tumor. He's a big fan of yours. You know, all he really wants is an autograph. And he's like, oh, cool. So he signs an autograph. He's like, good luck with the tumor, £25. And the woman's like, you're going to charge us for this? Well, yeah, of course. The sign's right there. It's whatever. And she's like,
oh, my God.
Tumor. He's like, yeah, but if I give you a free one, then all of a sudden everybody in line's going to get a tumor, and then I can't get paid. So, no, you got to know. She's like, but the press you'll get from this. And he just kind of looks at the camera. He's like, oh, yeah, this will be really good. It'd be on the news. And he's clearly calculating in his mind how this could pay off. Oh, free publicity or 25 quid. Okay, go ahead. Sure. Next guy who comes up, hi, can you sign this to who? Oh, yeah, I have a tumor. He's like, or whatever. He's like, no, I have AIDS. He's like, get out of here. And it's just wrong, but funny.
Yeah.
Very Ricky Gervais humor. I really enjoy it. It's wrong. Do not watch it with your kids because it's not something for kids, even though it's got Willow. But it's hilarious and wrong. I highly recommend Life's Too Short.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that out for sure. I love that you brought up Willow because I thought maybe one of these times we could do like an 80s sort of retro throwback movie suggestion.
Nice.
Instead of maybe I'm kind of thinking maybe our parenting wins and fails, man. Unless we get some more from other people, maybe we just alternate weeks or something like that. But tell us what you guys think. If you think that would be something you would be into, and you've got suggestions as to what people should watch from, and we'd even go to like the 70s and early 90s too, of something that's obviously not mainstream. I mean, don't come at us with like Back to the Future or something like that, because like but Willow would fit right in there. I mean, that's one that a lot of people have no idea about unless you grew up at that time, and so we'll all go like, oh yeah, that was great. But yeah, cool, very cool. Mine is a comic for the Nerdy Cave. It's Moon Knight. It's written by Warren Ellis.
Oh yeah, nice.
And I just actually read issues 4 and 5 of that, and I was really surprised how dark it was, and how violent it was. I first of all love his new costume. He's in this like white suit with just the mask. And he just in 5, like almost the whole comic is nothing but him just beating people up like gratuitously. I mean, it's brutal. But it's got this sort of just edge to it, and I love that he's sort of crazy. But actually the issue I liked better than that was 4, when he like went into this dream world through the Egyptian, moon god that sort of resurrected him. And Warren Ellis has kind of gotten this mystical side to it that I don't think anybody else has done, recently. And I loved it. I really, really liked it. The art was intriguing, and it was cool to just take it in a different way. So I'm really looking forward. It's definitely a less is more type of writing style, because he just puts it out on the page and doesn't over-explain anything or anything. There's not a lot of word bubbles or panels and stuff, and he just sort of lets the story go. And I like it. I like it that way.
Good call. I like that one.
Cool. Well, I was thinking that the parenting wins and parenting fails, unless you've got a good one, we maybe take this week off of that one, or do you really have one that you're jumping at, and then I can come up with something. I won't leave you out there.
I am just going to give, no, I don't really have a good fail. I have a great good, but it's a feel good. It's not really I did something awesome or anything like that. It was more, today was the first day of school. For a lot of kids, but here in Nevada it was. And I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And the 8-year-old started 3rd grade. But obviously that's special. I'm not belittling him because that's awesome. But it was 5-year-old. It was her first day of kindergarten. And a little girl taking her into school, and she had her little skirt on, and her shirt, and her pigtails, and it was awesome to see. And we had to force them to give each other a hug so we can get a picture of it. But the kids together, enjoying the first day of school, so excited. There's that little bit of sadness because my little girl, she's starting school, and it's like, oh man, she's getting big, all that stuff. But it was very cool to see both my kids are now in school, and they're doing the school thing. It was exciting. It was cool.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It hasn't been it's only been a couple of years since I was in that same boat, man, and that's a day when they're both in school. And gosh, I've got mine, and he rides his bike to school now all by himself. Heck, next year he's going to be in the junior high. I mean, it's just like, stop. Can we where's the TARDIS or a DeLorean or something? Because we need to go back. And exactly. So cool, very good parenting win. Nothing wrong with a simple, classic parenting win. First day of school. That's fantastic. I think mine's pretty simple too, and I'm going to stick with the Doctor Who theme. Is really had fun last couple of days of summer here because we start after Labor Day in Michigan state law and all, and have been playing Doctor Who Monopoly with my son, which has been a lot of fun. Monopoly is fun. I forgot how fun Monopoly is, and you can play it with fast rules, so it doesn't take 4 hours to play. And plus, when you're playing with kids, it doesn't take that long anyway because they're so much more willing to do deals and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
You just trade things. It's not about winning. It's about having fun. So that was my parenting win, and I just don't have a parenting fail this week. I'm just too good of a dad, I guess, this week.
I think
One
so.
week.
I think that's way to go. That's the route we'll take.
That's the route we'll take. We'll check 1 week off the calendar and point back to this in a couple months when we say, hey, look, but remember that 1 week I didn't I didn't make any mistakes, right?
I will say this though. I want to put out a fail there for, as I just said, I got back into the cable business. And I'm flipping through the channels on a Sunday, and Friday the 13th Part 2 is on at 1 p.m. in the afternoon on whatever the local cable station is. I'm like, I think you guys just failed miserably.
Yeah, that's a good point. Network fail. But that's sort of been, man, I've always had issues with that. I've had issues with watching ESPN, and I'll just be watching NFL Football Today or whatever it's called, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern time, So it's 4 o'clock, and then trailers for these new horror movies that are coming out come on, and they're scary. Yeah. And I'd have to change the channel in the middle of ESPN. It's just sort of really? Disney?
That's a good point.
Come on. Yeah. But, hey, that's the world we live in now, man.
Yep.
You got to be more, you got to have that controller at the ready.
True that.
Cool. Well, a successful episode. Is this 11?
This is 11, sir. We're getting up there, man. I know.
We are.
Very crazy.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, nerds, we will be back with episode 12 next week. Any final words there, Jason?
No, I think just, check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and, of course, on nerdlocker.com. And I'll give you the sign-off. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, all you nerds out there, have a nerdy week.